Everybody, welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to be talking about specifically what it means to have your Venus in Pisces or Venus in the 12th house. My name is Brandon. I do astrology videos here on YouTube, and this is part of a much larger series I'm working on where I go over every single planet and every single sign and house. This is the final Venus installment, as this is the Pisces and 12th house, the last sign of the zodiac, where we are going to be talking about what Venus means specifically in Pisces, the 12th house. Obviously, if you have Venus in any sign, all the videos are now out on this playlist down below. You're welcome to bop around on that playlist to kind of get a better idea of your specific chart and what placements you have that are within the 12th house or within Pisces or anywhere else within the zodiac, as this series has been quite a large, long process and long project that I'm really, really grateful to finally be in completion with. And it feels so bittersweet to be kind of ending this foundational sort of thing, but I'm really excited to be doing this now. Anywho, so the way this video is going to work is going to be broken down into a couple of different portions, one of which is obviously this first introduction where I just kind of talk about everything. Then we're going to talk about Venus in astrology, what that means, then Venus in Pisces, and then Venus in the 12th house. So if you have your Venus in Pisces but not in the 12th house, obviously skip to that part, or vice versa, as that'll kind of give you a better context to kind of help you with a little bit more of the idea in which astrology kind of works in that way. And so there's a lot of different ways that Venus can kind of work, so we're going to be talking about that. But this is just a really fun series. I really love doing this. This is what I love to do. And obviously you guys know this is YouTube, so please comment, like, share, subscribe. All those things are going to help me out, as this is what I do for a living. Yeah. And then obviously there is a playlist down below for any of my videos. And then also, of course, there is a website down below if you need to understand if you even have your Venus in Pisces or not, or Venus in the 12th house. There's a playlist down there, or not playlist, a link down there you can use to check out to find your birth chart to figure that out. So that's all I really need to say for that beginning portion there, but let's just go right into what Venus means within astrology. Okay, so we have Venus in astrology. Venus is definitely one of those more beautiful, more harmonious, positive planets within the zodiac, as it is very much connected to our morals, our ethics, our aesthetic, our values, money, relationships, all the things that kind of give us a sense of worth, a sense of value, a sense of resources, finances, things like that. It's a lot about art, relational kind of value in that way. And Venus's placement within the birth chart is going to indicate a little bit where, both by sign and by house, what area of life Venus is wanting to beautify, how Venus is really going to provide more beauty, more art, more opportunity, more abundance in that area, similar to Jupiter, but in more of a personal way, more of a kind of relational, kind of more, I don't want to say quieter way than Jupiter, but in a way that is more personal to us as opposed to bigger picture like Jupiter is. And the thing about Venus, it really does bring in a lot of relational values as well. And so wherever Venus is sitting by a house can indicate where you find your partner as well, where you end up kind of feeling most loved, how you feel the most loved, based off the Venus house placement. And of course, based off of where Venus is at by sign is going to indicate a lot of different things about how you love, how you kind of go about receiving love, giving love. Venus is very receptive to things. So there is a lot of like how you receive, how you bring things in, how you attract things, a lot of manifestation ability with Venus. And so Venus really has its own sort of domain about physical manifestation and relational manifestation. And a lot of the time people, when they focus on manifestation, they really focus on those two things for the most part, or like things that can be kind of broken down to being a subset of, relational values or financial values, to kind of increase those in some way, shape, or form. That's a lot of what Venus kind of brings in. It also brings in art, aesthetics, beauty in general. And so Venus definitely indicates a lot of those sorts of things, harmonious things that are just really kind and beautiful and peaceful and harmonious and aesthetic and otherworldly in some ways with Venus and Pisces. We'll get to that in a second. And so Venus's placement, obviously by house, sign, and aspect, are going to play into other roles of how Venus is really going to bring in that stuff, bring in their value, bring in their money, bring in their resources. Venus really does create a sense of peace wherever it sits. It creates a sense of kind of flow wherever it sits as well. So there is an aspect of Venus that is really important to look at. And there's a lot of different qualities to Venus depending upon what sign it's in. Obviously, Venus rules both Taurus and Libra. So if you have positive or really prominent Taurus or Libra placements, this Venus is going to have a lot of importance for you because you're ruled by it, right? In some way, shape, or form. So Venus can definitely have some really prominent ability to bring in things related to femininity in general, related to groups of anything that is feminine based in that way, anything that is more kind of aesthetic, artsy in that way. And then, like I said, Venus rules both Taurus and Libra, which are the signs of Venus. Taurus is the Venus ruled sign that's more luxurious, more resourceful, more tangible because it's an earth sign. And then Venus in Libra is that more relational kind of a Venus in that sense. And then the signs opposite those signs, so Venus in Martian ruled signs, so either Venus in Scorpio or Venus in Aries, are going to be where Venus is not comfortable, obviously, because Venus is wanting to create harmony and peace, and then they're put into a Martian kind of state, and you need to kind of balance those things. Venus and Mars, they are complementary to some degree, but when they're forced to work together like that, it can be kind of uncomfortable for Venus to have to do, but she still does provide those things. And then Venus is considered to be exalted in the sign of Pisces, which is the highest expression that Venus can kind of get to. When we think about exaltation, it's a lot about literally being sat at the seat of a throne or something to that degree, something that is brought to the highest ability that it has. So Venus in an exaltation in Pisces has its own gift that it has, that it gives with that, versus Venus in the opposite end of that is in Virgo, where it has a little bit more difficulty in really figuring out how to love, how to receive, what it wants to receive in that way. Venus and Virgo can definitely assist in that, and kind of assist in finding the right value, finding the right way in which you want to feel loved. And Venus and Pisces has its own dignity in that way. Now, when it comes to dignity, I do want to talk about this, as I've talked about this in almost every Venus dignity and every dignity video I've done, where essentially having a planet in its dignity in any way, shape, or form, whether it's Venus in its own sign in Taurus or Libra, or in the sign opposite of that, Aries or Scorpio, or in the sign of exaltation or fall, which is Pisces or Virgo, there's a sense of the lessons of Venus being very highlighted in a way that Venus is overextended or overexpressed or expressed in a way that is a lot more powerful, a lot more larger, louder than it would be otherwise. So a lot of the relational qualities become really prominent. And that's still the case, obviously, for Venus and Pisces, where relationships become this very larger expression, larger lesson, despite it being exalted, because Venus knows no bounds when it's exalted. It kind of rules that and almost extends that domain ability of Venus to really lift up so much of the chart to levels of prominence in ways that it wouldn't otherwise in other placements, but it really exacerbates that Venus lesson despite Venus being well placed, because it almost forces the individual with that Venus placement to focus even harder on utilizing the really positive values that they have that are innate to them with Venus exalted in Pisces or Venus at home in Taurus or Libra. It almost brings about more relational lessons, more financial self-worth lessons that are really prominent for that specific chart. And then, of course, the Venus house placement shows where that value is being brought, how that value is being used, what it wants to be utilized for. There's a lot of different qualities within that I think are really powerful when it comes to Venus. And we'll talk about that in a second with Venus and Pisces, but I just want to kind of get that out of the way. And then, of course, Venus does have a lot more prominence for those that are born at night, because a night chart typically has more of a direct connection with Venus as the sect light, or not sect light, I'm sorry, the sect, the benefic of sect, which is a Hellenistic technique. I'm not going to get too deep into that. There's plenty of videos on YouTube, not on my channel, about that, but feel free to look up Venus in sect, S-E-C-T, to get a better idea on that. If you're born at night, Venus is just going to have a lot more prominence, a lot more gifts it's going to give you versus being born during the day in that way. But all that aside, and of course, like I said, if you have a Taurus or Libra ruled chart, or Taurus or Libra moon or sun, you're not really going to have Taurus or Libra suns. You could have a Venus in Pisces, with a Taurus sun. It can happen, but you're not going to have a Libra sun with a Taurus or a Pisces Venus. It's not going to happen. But you could have your Venus in the 12th house and be either of those, and that would be a lot of prominence there. But if you also have your moon in Taurus or Libra, there's going to be a lot of prominence there, or any prominent just Libra Taurus placement that's outside of that, Jupiter, Saturn, Mars, stuff like that. So there'll be a lot of importance there. So that's pretty much all the intro stuff with that. Let's go into what you guys are here for, which is what Venus does in Pisces. So we have Venus in the sign of Pisces. So obviously this is where Venus exalts. So like I had said in the previous portion, Venus is going to, in some way, overextend itself. It's going to provide so much value. It's going to bring so much value, bring so much of a connection to finances, spirit, so much of a kind of merging of values for people that I think that Venus does so well here. And a lot of the time I see a lot of people that have Venus in Pisces and have the sun in Aries, because that's a really strong combination with an exalted sun and an exalted Venus. It becomes a very strong circumstance for these individuals, because Venus will quite literally at some point or the other bring this individual to a height of value relationally, or in some way financially, really support them, bring in a higher level of value pretty quickly. I have a family friend of mine who has this exaltation of both with the sun and Venus, and they, during their Saturn return, which was Venus conjunct Saturn in Pisces, they had just decided, they're like, I'm changing what I'm doing for a career. I'm going to go into this thing. I'm going to go into sales. And they immediately became like top of their field. They immediately were getting like high level praises within months, because of the level in which Venus wants to exalt. It wants to provide value in that way. And I think it's something that Venus really does create, a sense of kind of this. It's really interesting because Venus, when it exalts, it can actually create a level of financial or material or relational abundance or value that is so high that the individual feels as though they are even more pressured to keep up with that image, to keep up with that state of, like I said, exaltation, that state of like the status, essentially, because Venus wants to keep things beautiful, keep things up there, keep surrounding itself with high level of art and fashion and things. And there's a very strong prominence when Venus is really strong in the chart in Pisces. I know another person that I believe either has Venus, they have Venus on an angle exalted in Pisces, and they are very much into fashion, very much into aesthetics, and they become this sort of, and I'm pretty sure they're also ruled by, I think they're also a Libra rising ruled by the Venus exalted at the top of the chart, I believe, or I forgot where it was. The point is there's a lot of things within Venus when it exalts where it really brings forth value, art, beauty, femininity, resources. It just attracts a lot of different stuff. And I think there is a quality with Venus and Pisces where it struggles with maintaining that once it's attracted that level of prominence, value in that way. But they're meant to typically experience Venus and Pisces, a lot of fine art, fine food, fine resources. Someone else I know or knew had Venus exalted conjunct the North Node in the second house. And this person very early on got into very rich family, and got very much connected and very high financial kind of support, and lives a life of luxury. But the thing that's interesting, because it's with the North Node, and there's other aspects within the chart that are indicating this, it is fake. It's fake, and it's not actually real, which I think is something that Venus and Pisces can create. It can create a facade, because Pisces is this sense of things that we can connect to, that we're so tapped into, that we're so otherworldly, but they can misguide us, they can mislead us, they can be something that is almost not true, but it's because we believe it's true that we find the value in keeping it. We don't see the dirtiness for what it is, or the illusion for what it actually is. And I think it's very interesting. This particular person, they actually were known for supporting a lot of different types of people. They were known for supporting a lot of people that were struggling, whether through mental health or substance abuse, and assisting them by providing them housing in some way. And that's the thing that's really interesting. And then in the same way, they were also being provided housing by a very, very rich, wealthy person that was able to assist them. So it's very interesting because Venus in Pisces, one of the things I find with it, especially I think with this example, from what I had learned from this person, it's very much Venus, because Venus exalted on the North Node. It kind of really wants to both receive and give value. So although this person was receiving a lot of financial support, they were immediately kind of turning that around and giving that to other people, which is what Venus really wanted to do. It wanted to be philanthropic. It wanted to help others. It wanted to provide value, financial backing for what it could, or just beauty, just making people feel as though life is beautiful and life is worth living. And that's something that I think Venus really does do well in providing value for others. And so although it was an illusion and this person was not supporting themselves financially, because they were philanthropic, because they were helping others, especially homeless people, and people that were struggling with their own idea of faith or their own idea of why they're here, and gave them a safe space to come to, Venus kept giving them that opportunity to have that home over their head that might have been fake, but it was providing for a higher purpose, which is what Pisces is so connected to. The thing that I've talked about with all these Pisces videos is Pisces is this idea of connecting to divinity, connecting to something, losing yourself in something, losing yourself in some connection, in some artistic thing, in something you don't understand, losing yourself to then regain more value. And I think with Venus and Pisces, what may happen for some people, and I don't know if you have Venus and Pisces, I'd love to hear, but what may happen at some point in time is Venus and Pisces may lose everything and completely be on the other end of that, where they have to relate very deeply to almost the non-physical, in a way that they have to get rid of hedonistic or materialistic desires, and understand that everything that they have received is just a gift from divinity to give them meaning, give them purpose, give them something to do and provide for others. And there's a sense of gratitude for every single thing that is brought to them with Venus exalted in Pisces. It becomes a very powerful placement. It's interesting because, once again, not to just bring up this person in particular, but I say it because it's the strongest I've seen Venus in Pisces in the biggest range, and I think that's because Venus is exalted in Pisces on the North Node. And so what had happened was this person in particular was homeless well before they reached a very high level of prominence. So they went from being homeless on the street and having to do very unethical things to make money to then being at the top of like one of the most luxurious types of apartments that people would want to live in and dream of. And it allowed for them to then once again maintain that level of prominence and that level of support and beauty that Venus really wants in Pisces. It knows how to really create a sense of beauty and prominence very quickly. But I think there is ultimately with Pisces at some point or the other, just losing yourself to that, losing yourself to this kind of otherworldly divine intervention in some way. And so there is a quality with Venus in Pisces that becomes so otherworldly and altruistic. And yes, it can be hedonistic in some ways, because Venus is very much wanting to receive love, wanting to receive these things, and it can be very overly connected to its body and its physical pleasures because it wants to experience the full range of that, because it understands that although we are like earthly in ways, there's spiritual ways in which you can bring that in. And I think Venus and Pisces, there's almost a spiritual experience with the physical for them and relational with them, because Venus is ruling both the physical senses, what you eat, what you consume, in Taurus, what your senses are kind of taken in, as well as art too. And then relationally in Libra, And I think when Venus is exalted in Pisces, it almost creates a level of, not illusion, but a level of divinity, a level of spiritual connectedness to those things, where Venus and Taurus, for example, that sort of quality of Venus where they once again can become hedonistic. They can become so sensory connected. They want the sweetest foods. They want the finest meals. They want the finest art. They want to be surrounded by that, and they want to enrich their life by exposing themselves to those most beautiful things. And they're always finding beauty in things because they're trusting divinity to guide them there. And then in the relational aspect, this is where it can get a little bit dicey, because Venus in Libra does have a natural inconjunct to Venus in Pisces. So there is an aspect of this where there is a little bit of a disconnect, which is where I think you'll find Venus in Pisces most prominently having a sense of a lot of issues with boundaries relationally, because of that natural inconjunct between Libra and Pisces that exists. Although yes, Venus in Pisces is exalted, there is an aspect within astrology that not many people talk about, and that's this idea, I don't know the exact wording for this, but this idea of visibility from that planet. And I've talked about this in a couple other videos I've done here, but essentially Venus's ability to see other Venus placements on the spectrum in some way can definitely assist in understanding the way in which Venus works or doesn't work in certain aspects, in certain ways of the chart layout, connected to other things. I hope that makes sense. But essentially, like Venus's placement, for example, in Aquarius, it can naturally trine to Venus in Libra, and it naturally squares to Venus in Taurus, and then it's able to sextile to Venus in Aries, and then it's able to square to Venus in Scorpio. So it kind of allows itself to see all the different angles in which Venus can kind of connect to that. It has a semi-sextile to Venus in Pisces, so it's not quite able to get that exaltation ability, but it's able to see everything else within that. Kind of think of it as like the line of sight of that planet that allows for that planet to see other areas of how that planet wants to function or can function. And I think, like I said, Venus in Pisces, it can very much see Venus in Taurus quite well because of that natural sextile to that, one of the more major kind of, or I guess major, depending on how you look at it, aspects in astrology. But then that in conjunct to Libra is where I think it gets a little bit dicey, especially in the relational side of things, where they're not quite able to discern relational kind of boundaries. And so there's so much love they want to give, they want to receive, that they don't know where that line is at. And I think there's a level of relational kind of issues that can arise with this, but there's also a level of so much relational gifts that they can give. They can provide so much value for people. They can help so many people relationally see their value, because they're almost wanting to be in love. They're in love with love in a lot of ways, but it's about knowing where that other person's values are at and not trying to make that other person's values your values as well. And that's why I think Venus and Pisces can struggle, because Pisces is so otherworldly, connected to other different things. It has this quality of just very much really connecting to art and things that are not real in some ways. And I think Venus wants to bring that into the ideal way that they see other people. And I think some people don't see themselves that way as the Venus Pisces person sees that other person. And it's about knowing how to balance those things, knowing how to balance the ability for one to connect to their values and also translate that to someone else. And I think Venus and Pisces has such a strong sense of value that they bring to relationships, that there may be a disconnect or a difference between that other person's values. And that's why it's important to see where their other person's Venus is at, where their other person's Mars is at, all those different things, because Venus and Pisces does so well, right? But if you're with someone who has a different Venus, it's about understanding those love languages, understanding where they're at, and not wanting to bring them up to your level all the time, and knowing where those values are at. And it's interesting because I have my Venus in Libra. The person I had had their Venus in Pisces, and obviously we are no longer in connection, but it's very interesting to think about how that specific aspect kind of plays out in that way. Now, moving on from that, Venus in Pisces this is one of the most beautiful placements, like in so many different ways, because there's a level of divinity that it's in tune with that no other sign has the ability to do. And I think with Venus, it can create one of the most beautiful forms of art, one of the, if not the most connected, etheric ways of existing, and ways of showing the world who they are and their values. And I think that's why Pisces is such an artistic sign anyway, because it's all about this idea about projection, where you bring something to form, or you bring something up to the collective, and you allow the collective to kind of put whatever ideas they want on it, kind of project upon that, and create a kind of artistic piece of art based off of whatever you're doing. You might have an intention to make a piece of art that has a specific message to it, but it comes from you, right? And then but with art, you allow it to be interpreted in any way, shape, or form, because you know that there's so much within what you're creating that can be a tool for healing for so many different people. And I think that's where you'll see Venus and Pisces do quite well in artistic kind of endeavors, because they're intuitively connected into the collective subconscious that Venus and Pisces is connected to. And they're able to bring that into their values, into their relationships. And that's why I think with Venus Pisces, a lot of the time, in the art that they make and the things that they make money with, or what they make their money with, or what they have around them, it's very aesthetic, very beautiful, and they really, really crave that, and they do get that. And I think there's an aspect of that, though, that it is not really capable of discerning where that line is as well, the line of like reality versus not. But it also is so beautiful. Like it's so interesting. Venus and Pisces is so unique because it's understanding everyone's value and wanting to, it's connected to something that all of us that don't have Venus and Pisces or Pisces placements crave. We crave that ability to connect to divinity and have that be our movie moment, right? Have like a movie magic kind of relationship. We want the Disney fantasy. We want that. And Venus and Pisces has a way in which they can come across that they are that, or that they're creating that, or they can attract things that are like that. And we want like the rich, luxurious life all the time and the comfy things most of the time. And but we also, with Venus Pisces, it's really about being philanthropic, being able to give that away, being able to provide that for others as well. It's very interesting. There's a very strong relationship with their self-value, their self-concept, their identity, their inner sense of worth that is really strong with this one. And like I said, there's a lot of like needing to keep up images, needing to keep up to some degree facades, but needing to keep up that level of value. And they will, because that's what Venus does in Pisces. They unless there's other things happening in the chart, of course, like square to Saturn, square to Pluto, yada, yada, yada. But for the most part, Venus does quite well in Pisces for obvious reasons. But once again, there is a lot of relational kind of struggles I see with Venus and Pisces, where they love so well, and they really they care so much, but they also don't understand sometimes when other people don't have that same sense of values, same sense of ethics, same sense of morals, and they don't know how to navigate it, and they just want everyone else to come up to their level in some way. So there is some level of kind of confusion with that. But there is also confusing finances. They can also be very confused with their finances, not really clear on their finances until they begin to let it be something that's philanthropic, that allows them to provide for others in a healing way. They're so healing in their relationships, but there's also a sense of over-merging with somebody, a sense of victimhood as well, because Pisces is very much, it can be, if it's not really conscious of this, it can feel so victimized by its relationships, by its financial situations, but then at the same time, it wants to, once again, keep up those facades if it's in a situation, or it doesn't want to face the reality of what Spirit is really wanting to bring in their relationships, in their finances, in their like sense of self-worth. There's a really strong self-worth building exercises that I think would benefit Venus in Pisces, of really seeing how their values are, they're meant to be really given to the masses and help the masses in so many different ways, but at the same time, where's the line drawn between their values and what the collective is really wanting? It's like they have so much that they can give, and they're so desired in a lot of ways, because Venus loves to be desired. It's in Pisces, which is like everyone's dream in some way. So it's like a dream fantasy that you're able to provide in some way. But it's where does that, when does that fantasy wear off? What's the actual reality of the relationship? And And I think it's a lot about the Venus in Pisces, because it is also a Jupiter ruled sign. It's really about the meaning that you as a Venus Pisces individual put to your relationships, and your ability to find the meaning in all of what you've made your money with, all of what the value is that you bring to relationships, that you bring to your world, how you make your finances, how you provide for yourself, right? What really matters to you. And Venus in Pisces, and Venus in general, is really going to teach us about really figuring out our morals, our values, what we want to stand on, what it is that we really care about. And when Venus in Pisces cares about everything and everyone, it can have this martyr complex to it, where it wants to just give to everybody. It's almost like I want to give and provide, and I want to help other people, and that's great and that's amazing. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but sometimes they can do that to a fault, where they're being led by this divine guidance, but they're not providing for themselves in some way, or they're not providing their own finances, or something like that effect. It's really interesting, because there's a sense of spiritual backing with Venus in Pisces, but there's also a sense of being misled by beautiful things that are idealized in your mind in some way, and aren't able to be brought into form for whatever reason, because other people are not seeing what you're seeing. They're not seeing the beauty. They're not seeing the potential. They're not seeing the value that either you're providing to something, or that you can see within a circumstance or a situation that you're trying to get brought out of something. And I think that's where, once again, the Venus Pisces can struggle, because that natural inconjunct to Libra, that really is like, how do I translate my values when I'm so connected to everything and everywhere, and all these things that are so interwoven, when I'm so connected to art and music and aesthetics and beauty. How can I translate that to people, right? And I think when it's driven by their belief, driven by their meaning, that's where their Jupiter placement becomes really important for this, because you're going to want to see what it is that Venus is really believing is purposeful, right? If you have Venus in Pisces and then Jupiter in Taurus, it's going to be a lot more hedonistic, or like physically tangible things that you're going to want to hold on to. This is someone that could be an amazing pastry chef, or an amazing person that is creating art out of things that are edible and things that are tangible, a great fashion designer, a great aesthetics, someone that's very involved with the sensory aspect of that. Versus if we put, Jupiter in Gemini versus Venus in Pisces, there's a natural square to that, where there's kind of this understanding of written material, of like, how am I explaining myself in a conversational way that's valuable. There's a sense of poetry with this one. It's about wherever you place that meaning, wherever that Jupiter placement is at, it really enlarges what type of meaning you're drawing, or the Venus is drawing itself from. So it's a lot about what is meaningful to you. And I think with Venus and Pisces, it can find meaning in anything and everything, because that's what Pisces does. It finds meaning and connection in everything that it's doing. And it's so beautiful, and it's so phenomenal, and it's so amazing. But at the same time, it needs to know, why is it doing this? Why is it providing this much value? Why is it going and creating this art, or this music, or this? Why is it consuming this thing? Why is it eating this food? Why is it wanting to be in this type of relationship? What is the meaning behind that, right? Asking why is going to help a Pisces placement so much, because they need to be able to discern. They need to be able to discern what is reality, what is not, what is real, what is not. And that's where Venus and Virgo can actually do benefit. Although, yes, Venus does not do well in Virgo, because it's wanting to love, it's wanting to have this beautiful way of relating. But it really, really struggles, because it's trying to find the perfect way to do that. There's no perfect way to relate to somebody. There's no perfect way to really, really make, provide for yourself. It's always going to kind of shift and change, and it's always going to change based off of the values of what you're bringing, who you're working with, those sorts of things. But then I think with Venus and Pisces, it becomes something where they're almost too open, that they can't quite discern what it is that is valuable to them, because they're so kind of taken by the kind of the waves of the world of their kind of heart on their sleeve in some ways. Venus and Pisces has such a heart on their sleeve. They care about everybody. They love everybody. They want to help everybody. And there's beauty in that. There really, really is. But it's really about how Venus and Pisces is capable of bringing that to others. And knowing that their bleeding heart that they have for others is because they see the idealized potential in other people. They see it so prominently, so strongly, and they're trying to bring that out in people. They're trying to bring out those ideals, those transcendent things, that those visions that they're having in their environment. They're so artistic. They're so beautiful. Pisces is such a beautiful, beautiful sign in and of itself. And I think even Saturn in Pisces, which we'll get to next in the next video, but there's even there, it's about bringing that imagination in, bringing that trust in divinity in. And I think Venus already knows how to do that almost too much, where they fall into it. And it's a lot about them learning how to really understand what it is that their value is in this world, what philanthropic thing or what meaning they have. Why are they here, right? And astrology is such a great tool with that. And exaltations definitely help you bring yourself to a lot of level of prominence, but it's like, okay, what do I do with that? Right? If I had a bunch of money to the level of influence that a Venus in Pisces could get to, which is really large, what would I do with that? Where would I go with that, right? What meaning do I give to these things, the physical, the clothes that I wear, the foods that I eat, the art that I consume, the music I like, the people and relationships I want to be a part of, the aesthetics I have around me, my home? What meaning does that give me, right? Because at the end of the day, Venus Pisces, it's crazy to think about this, but like, we don't bring any of the physical stuff with us into the next life. We don't. A lot of what we bring is the karma and the relational stuff, the energy that we've given, right? I think there's so much within Venus and Pisces with that phrase where it's like, you leave all this stuff behind. You leave all these physical, tangible things behind. You can't bring those into the next life. Yes, you can definitely provide for your family and generational wealth is the thing, but it's really about the energy and the healing that you've done for yourself and others, the impact that you bring to other people in a lot of different ways. And you have such a unique gift as Pisces placements to be able to impact so many different people on a collective level and create such a unique sense of healing and change. Even artists are such impactful people in society, because art needs to be preserved. Art needs to be shared in a lot of ways. And I think when you think about artists, there's some people that are like, oh well, like we don't need art we don't need art in schools. And it's like, no, you do, because think about how people make art. Some people make art. You wouldn't have like any books, you wouldn't have any music, you wouldn't have any TV shows, you wouldn't have any form of entertainment without art. And I think there's so much within that is so beautiful, and there's so much of a healing ability that Venus does in Pisces because of its interconnectedness to the collective subconscious, what the collective needs for healing to work through those things. And I think there's so much of a beauty in this, where they're just surrounded by fine art, fine food, stuff like that. Over time, once again, they could definitely lose themselves, and they could definitely be on the verge of, homelessness, or in those areas too. They could lose themselves to the values that are surrounding them because they think that's all there is, right? There's a sense of they only think that is what they deserve in some ways because that's all they're surrounded by. They're very much, Venus and Pisces, a product of their environment. And depending upon the rest of the chart, obviously, where Venus is at by house, Venus aspects, things like that, it's going to indicate how this person is providing value, potentially getting out of that situation, right? If it's a Venus Pisces and you have Pluto and Sag with a Venus-Pluto square and you're Gen Z, that's very different. That's someone who's going to have a lot of value that they're going to have to provide, and they're going to create a lot of art through a lot of pain, through a lot of difficulty, through a lot of disempowerment, a lot of abuse, and that's Venus-Pluto stuff, which I get a lot. I get a lot of Venus-Pluto clients personally. It's like the most prominent one that I get because I am Mars-Pluto. So I get a lot of the Venus people that come in. And I think there's so much of a beauty in them that they're trying to find their value. And I think for those of you that have Venus and Pisces, square Pluto and Sag, I know this is kind of a more niche audience, but I really want to tell you that people that take your light from you, take your value from you, try and control you, try and put you down, and say that you're worth this or you're not worth this, or this is what your value is to me, or whatever, or control you with finances or with their relational power. The reason they're doing that is because they actually know deep down that you're more valuable than they are. and you have more value, more light than they do, because they're trying to control it. They're trying to push it down. They're trying to keep it from growing. It's like it's like knowing and sensing that there's a really beautiful flower about to emerge. Of course, Venus in Pisces brings up flower imagery, but there's this beautiful flower that's going to emerge, and the Venus-Pluto aspect is like, no, I'm going to poison it. I'm going to put too much fertilizer on. I'm going to overwhelm it. I'm going to, force it to be this way. But beauty and art and love, they can't be forced. They can't be manufactured. They just are. And yeah, Venus in Pisces understands that at some point. They understand that love is an energy that you bring. It's compassion. It's healing. And yes, to some degree, Venus-Pluto people are going to reach that after a lot of difficulty. They're going to regain that light, regain that love, regain that ability to love and feel loved and feel valued over time. But it's about how they go about it, and heal themselves and heal their relationship with themselves and their value that they provide. And whether it's relationally or internally and what they're making money with, those things, there's a lot of value that Venus has in Pisces, and it wants to bring that out, and it can't be rushed. It's a healing process, and I think there's so much Venus-Pisces people that have such a unique gift of healing in so many different ways, and I think that's why they're able to connect so many different people, because their love is connected to a level of universality where it's interwoven into so many different people. It's so relatable. There's a level of relatability that Venus does really well in Pisces, but once again, it can be too relatable, where there's not that much ability for it to really discern what it's creating it for. And then in the same way, to kind of argue that point I just brought up as well, is like, it doesn't need to be relatable, especially in the form of art. Venus and Pisces can just be this form of like, it just gives, and it just knows that it's going to come back to it. It knows that what it gives will return. It understands that from a spiritual level, because it's experienced it in a very spiritual way. It's experienced it in a more esoteric, more aligned way, where they just trust and they know that everything's going to be okay. They know that everything's going to be fine, that everything comes back to them. And there is a sense here with Venus and Pisces that there is a lot of, like I said, advocacy and philanthropic stuff working for overseas, for people that are not really talked about, not really brought up in society. Venus and Pisces becomes this very giving, healing vessel in a ways. And Venus and Pisces can create a love for every human, a love for humanity, a love for society, in a way that Venus and Aquarius can't really do. In the same way, Venus and Aquarius does that, but it's because they want to bring things together. Venus and Pisces just, it's a vibe. It's the energy of compassion. It's the energy of walking in faith. It's the energy of walking in value and love and staying in that. And I think it's so hard for Venus and Pisces to understand and live in all the time, because if you think about water, and Pisces is the most watery sign you can have, because it's a mutable water sign. It's water that's moving beyond the waves and with the waves and merging with stuff. The thing about Venus and Pisces, it's such a elusive quality. Venus and Pisces has such a beauty to it, where because it's so watery, it can connect everything. Like I've said this to all the Pisces videos, and I'm probably already said in this one, but if you put a drop of water in the ocean, it becomes the ocean. And Venus and Pisces really is like, I bring my value to this thing, and it becomes whatever it is. It merges so easily. But the thing about Venus and Pisces, and this kind of speaks to the whole like substance abuse, kind of mental health issues, those sorts of things that are kind of on the fringe of our subconscious that Pisces is ultimately attuned with. But I think Venus and Pisces, with that same water analogy, can get placed in environments or placed in circumstances or relationships that are inherently toxic, and that are so dirty in some way, that need to be cleansed, that need to be purified, and they don't know how to do that, and they just succumb to the wave that they were taken out to sea by. They just say, well, this is my circumstance, and that's where the victim part of Pisces can come in, where they're surrounded by people that are lost as well, that don't know their value, and then they become the byproduct of that environment. They become a reflection of all of what's around them and the major energy of that specific field. And I think that's Venus and Pisces is so sensitive. Pisces placements in general are so sensitive to their environment. They need to be surrounded by peace and love and environments that are high value. And even if they're not in a high value space, they need to be able to see that perspective of high value. They need to be able to understand that there is something beyond that they are tapped into and some bigger reason as to why that's happening. Once again, pulling us back to the Jupiter, where there's this almost quality of the reason I'm here is to teach, and the reason I'm here is to love, and they need to be able to understand what that is in every step of the way. I'm talking very like metaphorically here because of like my own Mercury in the 12th and that whole stuff that I have, but it's so much more important for people to understand their meaning than it is in anything. But I think Venus and Pisces really they have such a meaningful life, and they may not see that when the life is dirty and gross and not lovable, and they feel like not lovable. But even in those moments in time when they are at their lowest, because I think Pisces placements all kind of get there at some point, or they're even exposed to it in some way, they need to know that love still exists in those kind of darker spaces, or in those spaces that we don't really want to look at, whether it's a hospital, whether it's on the verge of death, whether it's, in isolation in any way, shape, or form, whether it's in those dark nights of the soul, if you will, where you're in your own energy and you are struggling. Venus needs to still provide you with love during that time. And I think Venus and Pisces will be exposed to people that are going through those moments, to be able to bring them out of that and say, you still deserve love, because even though you're in those spaces, even though you're in that darkness and that difficulty and that dirtiness, there's still beauty in that. And I think Venus and Pisces will learn that over time as they've been exposed to those different environmental things or relational things, and say, no, this is valuable. No, I know there's purpose in this. I know there's meaning in this. And I know all the Venus Pisces people are like, they've been at different points in their life at both of those ends typically, but it's a lot about them finding the meaning behind all of this. Because you can get caught in everything. You can get caught up in anything with the Pisces placement, and Venus is like, you really merge so deeply into so many different things. And I think that's why your meaning behind why you're choosing to merge into that person or that relationship or that job or that contract or that art or that whatever it is, whatever you're choosing to do or to get or whatever you want, you need to figure out why it is you want that thing. And yeah, typically it's like, I want it because it feels good. I want it because it makes me feel safe. I want it because all these different things. Figure out why it is you desire what you desire, because yes, Venus is exalted in Pisces, but it can also create so much desire that it's like, it's not even able to discern why it wants that thing. It just is so, it's so connected to everything that it wants to kind of just experience all relational things, all financial kind of, things that finances can bring, things that their senses can experience. They want a rich life. And sometimes to do that, you have to experience the opposite of that and find the beauty in those darker moments in time. And I think Venus Pisces has such a beautiful quality to it. I love everybody that has this. I love everybody in general, but it's such a universal love that Venus Pisces brings. It has such a quality of beauty to it that it brings everywhere it goes. And I think the Venus house placement also has a really big prominence in that. And I love being able to help people that have any placement for that matter. But Venus and Pisces, I find I get a lot of them where they are very much attuned to this level of beauty that everyone else can tap into and understand. But Venus and Pisces is so more in that consistently than the average person, and they're able to bring in beauty and art and love and all these things that people are so capable of seeing and sensing. But because of that, once again, people project on them. People project that they are a perfect partner, or they're a perfect this, or they're a perfect fit, because they're so connected to value and there's so much they bring to circumstances or relationships or jobs and things. And I think having Venus and Pisces person on your side is great, but there's a sense of seeing the reality of what it is, and that's where I think Venus and Pisces and Venus and Virgo can kind of benefit one another, and see, once again, the Venus Virgo, why are you doing this? What's the reason behind this? What are the finer details, and why you love this thing, and why you desire this thing, I think is really, really important for Venus and Pisces. And of course, obviously, the meaning behind it, that's kind of in that whole quality there. And then, of course, looking to see the aspects, the house placement, things like that are going to help you as well. Yeah, Venus in Pisces is such a wild ride. It's beautiful, though. I love it. I love it. And it's one of those things where, and I've talked about this before in these Pisces videos. I forgot which one. I think it was Mercury. But there's a level of seeing the world through an artist's eyes that I think Venus in Pisces is so connected to, that it overwhelms me. It overwhelms me a lot. But there's a level of beauty that Venus does in Pisces that is so sensitive. Pisces is so sensitive to nuance. It's so sensitive to small, subtle things, but it needs to learn how to be sensitive and know how to be attuned to that very small, sensitive dial of subtlety that Venus has in, any planet has in Pisces, but Venus has especially, where it's like subtly aware of the relational things that are happening, the values that it's providing. Don't give away too much of yourself as a Venus and Pisces person, because people are going to want it, they're going to want to desire it. And also don't be too greedy in that way. There's a lot of balancing acts with that, as a Venus Libra individual talks about, but knowing how to be fine-tuned. And that's why Venus and Pisces has a lot of abilities to, the discernment's their biggest gift in a lot of ways, once they're able to discern what is their drop of water and what is more of a unclear drop of water, or more of a tainted stain in a way. Within that bigger ecosystem, there's a lot of sensitivity to that they're able to subtly kind of be aware of. So I think there's a lot of gifts there. It's about how you bring that gift to other people, and that's why I think watercolor is very Venus and Pisces, like very like connected to everything, and seeing how it all kind of merges into one. Yeah, fine art is really, really beautiful, Venus and Pisces. So yeah, just y'all are beautiful. You really are. I love the Venus Pisces vibe. It's so great. I love doing these deep dives in these videos because they're so much fun, because they're just really fun. They're great. I really love them. I think there's so much within Pisces. There's more than I could even touch on. And I love it. I love all of what you guys bring to the world, in art, in music, in therapy, and healing. There's so much healing you naturally bring. And you bring it just by loving and by providing value for other people. There's, like I said, there's a sense of charity here, a sense of helping others. Like Venus Pisces is also very much, and also Venus 12, what I'll get to in a minute. They're very much like the going to third world countries and helping beautify them, helping to flip houses or go and find things that are not beautiful and make them beautiful. Interior design can be very Venus, 12th house, Venus Pisces can be very much that. But there's a lot of different ways in which design aesthetics can be brought into this, and Venus is such a powerful placement in Pisces, and I love it as a Venus domicile person. I love Venus in Pisces for obvious reasons, and I see a lot of the resonance with that. But once again, as a Venus Libra, I also see the in conjunct with that, as I've spoken on before. So that's the other thing too. So many different astrologists are going to speak so differently about Venus and Pisces based off their own chart and their own indications within that. And I think it's really about your own level of self-awareness. And that's what I really hope that this series has been able to help people with, is their own level of self-awareness with specifically their own chart, their own ability to, connect to their own Venus, their own Mars, their own, moon, sun, all those things. To be able to really understand themselves. And I hope this gives you healing. I hope this helps everybody that watches this in some way, shape, or form. And I hope astrology can be that for anyone, as it has been for me and many others that I've helped, to see your value, see what it is that you can provide to the world. And I know Venus Pisces, y'all can provide a lot, but knowing and doing the reflective work and the self-awareness of this, because with astrology, it's great, but there's no, I can't put the work in for you in that ways. You have to be able to be aware of your own tendencies within your chart, and that's where a whole reading comes into play and all that stuff, obviously, and obviously your own ability. Because I can look at a chart and I can tell you stuff, but I have not lived your life. I do not have your level of consciousness. I do not have your specific experiences to draw upon. You do, and I think that's where astrology becomes such a gift. And sorry, I'm going like a whole rant here, but. So yeah, so that's just really what I want to say. It's just so sad because I don't want this Venus Pisces energy is so beautiful and I love it, and I don't want this to end, but it has to end because it just has to. Because I have to go to the next part. This video is already quite long anyway. But I hope this helped you guys, really. Venus Pisces, I really want to hear your story if you have Venus in Pisces or you know someone that has Venus in Pisces. I'm also going to put some classes down below if you're interested. I did a whole Venus-Mars class recently that I'm going to put out down there. And I really hope that this helped you. in some way, shape, or form reflect upon yourself. And yeah, I love this. So thank you so much for the Venus Pisces. And obviously, if you like this, please like it, comment, share, subscribe. All those things are going to help me do what I do. I love it. If you guys are interested in anything with me, obviously my booking stuff's down below. So I'll see you guys in the next part. We talk about what Venus means in the 12th. Okay, so we have Venus in the 12th house. Now, the 12th house is going to be a house that's very hidden to us, that is not really allowed to be seen in a lot of ways. And when we think about Venus in the 12th house, obviously it has some indications related to Pisces, because that is naturally the sign that rules the 12th house. But obviously in the 12th house, Venus does not have to be in Pisces. It can be in many different other signs that will kind of indicate very different things about the native. But the thing about Venus in the 12th, it does have this level of higher idealism about relationships that is similar to Venus in Pisces. But there's a lot of stuff that is hidden behind the scenes about their relationships, about their values, about their finances, things like that. Because Venus in the 12th has a lot of capability of providing value, but it's value in a very private, secluded, isolated, different way. And in 12th house areas. What is the 12th house? The 12th house is all things that are secluded from us, all things that are I don't know if liminality is a word, but in like a liminal space or in a space of transition between consciousness and unconscious. So Venus in the 12th, amazing. 12th house planets are amazing for mediumship. They're phenomenal for that. But there's a sense of Venus in the 12th where there's some hidden value that you don't realize is there, and you have to find a way to bring it out. And a hidden sense of your own morals, your own ethics, your own self-esteem that you're trying to grasp at. You're trying to understand who you are, what values you have behind you that you're not even aware of. You're trying to figure those things out, and you don't know what that is. And that's where Venus in the 12th can have some very interesting relationship lives, because they are bringing in a lot of people that are projecting upon them different values in so many different ways. And their relationships become almost hidden to them, of why those relationships had to happen, what value they're bringing to relationships, what their kind of relational quality is, what the theme is within their relationships, what value they have, what morals. Like, there's so many different things that Venus can do in the 12th. And once ultimately it's this sense of value that is hidden from you over time, that as you begin to release it and release the attachment to it, and provide it in a more philanthropic or more healing way, either in solitude for others, so think of hospitals, jails, things like that, or in just a giving of yourself and healing in a more energetic way, a lot of charity work in a lot of senses, you're going to create a lot more value in yourself. You'll see it. You'll see it when you sit with it, when you sit with your values, when you sit with your relationships, when you have that private stuff. And it'll come together the more you're willing to release the way that love or money is meant to show up, which is hard because people want money to show up in strong ways, in solid ways. But in some ways, in the 12th house, it comes and it goes in a very nebulous, kind of enigmatic way where it's not really linear. Because it's not meant to be. It's meant to allow you to understand. And obviously Venus in different signs is going to play differently into this, but Venus in the 12th is meant to have you understand more of your own value. And I think it's so deep and so complex for Venus in 12th houses because it's meant to be hidden from you. It's meant to be something that you can bring out in subtle ways that kind of over time shows itself to you. Your value you provide as a Venus 12th houser is so valuable that you don't even see the depth and the range in which it can actually go. Your love can feel so otherworldly and accepting of others in ways that no one else can provide. And your relationship life can also be very confusing. There could be a lot of isolation with Venus in the 12th house. Venus in the 12th house is also very prominent for people that have relationships in jail, or when they're in a relationship, it becomes something that is distanced from them. And I'll get to this when I get to some certain examples. But Venus in the 12th definitely indicates some hidden or spiritual or isolated relationship in some way where it's kind of not really allowed to be connected in certain ways, right? Obviously, you have to look at the whole chart for a lot of different ideas with that. But Venus in the 12th can create a very strong relationship life as well, a strong aesthetics, a strong ability to create value in people's lives that you don't really know why you're doing it. You don't know what the reasoning is. And you have to follow that trust and that faith, as the 12th house really dissolves that ability to see that very clearly. And there's a lot of idealization with the 12th house because it's right above that sunrise, where a lot of people project on, oh, this is going to be the amazing day, and the day just started, right? We don't have any more concept of what's happening throughout the day. So the 12th house really has, especially Venus, it has like this relational kind of idealization put upon it. And then you also idealize the relationships in that way and other ways in which you can make money, value you can provide. There's a sense of imposter syndrome as well with this, with Venus in the 12th. Yeah, it's really interesting. And Venus really does want to create value and privacy in behind the scenes things. So this is where you'll see a lot of people that are like behind the scenes producers, or people that are really helping beautify things people don't see, but makes a big part of the show or a big part of the production, right? These are the ones behind the curtain that are putting a show on, that are really making sure everything is ran in a way that is beautiful, that is helpful, and having those kind of hidden values that they're able to, that hidden beauty that they're able to bring into situations that people don't always see. And they have to be okay with that not always being seen as well. But it will be seen over time, of course, as it reveals itself, and as you become to some degree more philanthropic, more caring and giving of yourself in a very, therapeutic, healing way to others. I think that's where a lot of Venus in the 12th can really shine and create a lot of power in the relational kind of world. It's really, really great. I love it. Anywho, so Venus is going to function very differently in different signs in the zodiac, in the 12th house. Venus in a Martian world sign, obviously not that comfortable here because Venus in a Martian world sign is not going to really, it's going to do things that are very masculine for a feminine planet. And so there is a sense of, there's a quality that's with Venus in the 12th in Aries that is very, and in Scorpio, they're both very kind of risque, very different, very, there's some hidden relational drama with this one. Venus and Scorpio, there's some definite, that's a dark one. They're both dark in their own way. Venus and Aries has like a feminine empowerment quality to it. They both do. And I'm not saying not every single person that watches is going to be a woman, obviously. But a lot of the Venus, Aries, Venus, Scorpio, 12th house things, especially Venus, Scorpio, there's a sense of like, relational abuse and sexual abuse, and obviously men do experience this as well, but it's not as spoken about. So even there could be men that have Venus and Aries in the 12th, Venus and Scorpio in the 12th, that have experienced that and learning how to navigate that and have it be unseen. But there's some definite unseen battles in the relational side of things with Venus and Scorpio, Venus and Aries in the 12th. Venus and Aries in the 12th is interesting because this is also your chart ruler, because you are a Taurus rising ruled by Venus and Aries in the 12th. And so there's a quality in this that speaks to really allowing yourself to be an individual, really allowing yourself to individuate your own love, your own value, love on your terms. There's a lot of qualities there. Loving on your terms, loving in ways that are very spiritual and supportive, but also driven by you and not driven by someone else. Very interesting. The Venus in the 12th in Aries is very unique because the Taurus risings already have like a difficult relationship life anyway with Scorpio on the descendant. But having Venus in the 12th in Aries adds that layer of like individually knowing who you are so that you're not getting involved with stuff that's like a karmic loop and a karmic cycle over and over again. Very intense. This is a very intense one because it's a double indication with the Scorpio in the 7th and then Venus in the 12th. Very interesting. Lots of Martian qualities, lots of fighting for stuff. Yeah, this one interests me a lot. So if you have this placement, I'd love to hear. There's a lot of different stuff. The Venus 12th house stuff there's a lot of layers to this. Obviously, this isn't just a one size fits all. I'd have to like see the whole chart and see what else is happening. But Venus in the 12th in Aries has a very personal thing to them. Very sensitively personal thing in the 12th. Because like I said, it's your chart ruler. So it's kind of chilling over there in the 12th, in not a good state entirely, but it's very focused on its own relational values and its own stuff it brings to situations and independently, right? It's very much protecting itself. It's very interesting. There's a lot of them. Yeah, this one's hard. But ultimately, it's about you being motivating to other people, being able to stand on your own, being single for as long as you need to do the work, right? This could be someone who's been in a single relationship for so long to heal from an abusive relationship that they then become, after they've followed their own self for quite a while and trusted their own self and developed that sense of self-reliance and self-faith and knowing their value that they bring and building up their resume of their own worth that's not reliant on someone else controlling them, they then become like an indispensable sort of person and relationship. It's really, really cool in that way. And the Venus in Scorpio is similar, but Venus in Scorpio has a lot more of the depth here. There's a lot more depth with this one in the 12th here. This one has a little bit better chart layout because it's a Sag rising with Venus in Scorpio, but it's still going to be a difficulty here. There's some interesting stuff. I'm trying not to go too deep into these as much as I want to because there's so much depth with the 12th house and planets in the 12th. There's so many. Like, I could make a whole series on planets in the 12th, this kind of is the whole series, but there's so much more within this that I think can be extrapolated on. But Venus in Scorpio in the 12th, there's a lot of relational kind of like feeling, there's something there. There's something about like stuff that you can't see or haven't seen in your psyche, deep psychological relational trauma stuff. Really like needing to heal from stuff you can't see. Really deep relational kind of things. It's very hard. That's a hard one. Yeah. So, and I get a lot of Venus Pluto people anyway, but this one I think is a little, it's hard, it's difficult. But obviously you have to look at the entirety of the chart to see what else is going on with that as well. But Venus in the 12th in Scorpio does have a lot of empowerment. Venus Scorpio has a lot of empowerment. If you have Venus Scorpio, please go watch that video because there's a lot I talked about with that Venus Scorpio. That was one of my favorite weeks to do, obviously, because I have a lot of Scorpio placements myself. So check that out. That's going to help you a lot more than this little moment would if you have your Venus in the 12th. And if you have a Venus in the 12th in Scorpio, please let me know. I'd love to hear that story. Obviously in private, because Venus in private, Scorpio, 12th house, very private relational things that are quite intense. Anywho, moving on from the roughness of that one, let's go to Venus in its own signs, Venus in Taurus and Libra, which has a lot of comfort. There's a sense of almost too much comfort with both these signs in the 12th. Their relationships are very, very confusing. And much like every other Venus video I've done about Venus and any sort of dignity, and this is one of them, Venus in Pisces, Venus in its own sign, it almost exacerbates those lessons because Venus is comfortable. Venus is like, oh, okay, I know what I'm doing. Let's put me in that house, and now I'm working in that spaces. So there's a lot of like really interesting financial and relational kind of hidden value you bring. This one is really interesting because it has a gift that it brings to the world, a gift that it brings to society in a lot of ways, but this one's weird. This one's weird in a way that like I can see it, and that's the thing with the 12th house, you can see it, but you can't, like you can sense it, you know? Venus and Libra in the 12th definitely has like some relational therapeutic ability for sure. And like helping people heal their subconscious, their psyche, their inner world, healing past relationships from other people, helping people through therapeutic or spiritual means in that way. Venus in Taurus, though, is a weird one because it's almost like, if we place it in the 12th, it's almost this like, it's almost this very, it's hard because it's like a very, like I said, there's a hedonistic part of this with Venus in Taurus specifically. Venus in Taurus has a quality of, really a lot of comfort, but the comfort is in stuff that you like. There's a sense of too much comfort with Venus and Taurus. That's, I think, the biggest part of it. Like there's too much that they want to just maintain, and they don't understand that maintaining that is keeping them stuck from growing. Really weird. Some really interesting subconscious money beliefs. Venus in the 12th has that in general, no matter what it is, but I think Venus in its own sign, especially in Taurus, has a lot more like money mindset issues. Subconscious reprogramming that I think Venus in the 12th, especially in its own sign, can do really well once it learns that. But I think there's a lot of very interesting money mindset, getting stuck into that stuff, getting comfortable, that I think needs to be worked through. And also, like, what are your morals? What are your ethics? Why are you doing this? What are you spending your money on? Why are you spending your money on that? What does money mean to you? Yeah, that's an interesting one. And then like Venus and Libra, what do your relationships mean to you? What are the karmic relationships? What are those like? How do you try? There's a lot of like giving away your resources, but then Venus and Taurus doesn't want to do that, so it's also strange. I don't know, it's weird. Venus in the 12th is a weird one. They're all kind of weird. They're all kind of strange. They're all kind of unique because there's so many layers to it. It can also make you an amazing artist. Venus in its own sign and Taurus. Imagine like visual artist or like textiles. Really great with that. But there's a sense of like foreign value you're providing. Speech therapy you can provide with people because the 12th house rules hospitals. Venus and Taurus rules the throat. There's a sense of providing resource for the people. Helping people, like there's plant therapy, music therapy. There's something with that with Venus. Yeah, it's interesting. Venus in the 12th is interesting in those signs. Interesting. Anywho, Venus in Mercury and Virgo. So Venus in Mercury ruled signs. So in Gemini, I'm sorry, not Mercury and Virgo. Venus in Gemini and Virgo in a Mercury ruled sign. My bad. Venus in Gemini in the 12th. This is obviously the therapeutic one because it's talking, it's communicating, it's having those opinions. But there is some biases. There's definitely some biases there that need to be worked out with Mercury in the 12th. I think that's one of the bigger ones with Mercury in the 12th, or Mercury planet in the 12th. But it's relational biases, it's conversational biases, it's some language-related difficulty, language-related kind of struggle that needs to be worked through. Very interesting in how you communicate with someone, your communication style, communication ability. There's a sense of merging your language with other people. And there's a lot about surrounding yourself with the people that are really speaking in ways that you want to be spoken to, or the ways that your mind is really wanting to manifest something. It's really interesting. This one's kind of unique, and it's similar to Venus and Virgo in some ways, which I'll get to in a second, but because I have a lot to say on that one. But Venus and Gemini, I think there's a lot about the opinions around you that are affecting you in ways that you don't understand, or are guiding you to spend money or to follow relationships in that ways. It's all about what is the echo chamber of what you're surrounding yourself in. And I spoke about that a lot with the 11th house, but I think the 12th house has qualities of that too, especially when you place a Venus ruled sign in the 12th, where the relationships become a echo chamber of opinions that don't necessarily elevate you, and there's a sense of needing to understand your biases that are being echoed to you in the 12th house, and how that's guiding you or harming you in some ways. And then in that same way, Venus in Virgo, which I have a lot to say about because this is your chart ruler, and I know someone who has this placement quite well. And I think there's a quality with this where, because it's your chart ruler, because you're Libra rising with Venus in the 12th in Virgo, there's a lot within that where you are being brought into foreign lands, foreign cultures, foreign relationships, things that are a lot of past life relationships in that way that you're being connected to that are so crucial for your healing, to see the vast range of love that you can provide. Obviously, Venus is not happy in this sign here, but it is your chart ruler, so there's a lot of importance for you to understand relational values, relational lessons, and how to relate. And there's no perfect way to do that because every single person requires a different sort of level of acceptance that Venus does in the 12th inherently. But then with Libra, it's you. You are the one that's being brought into, private sectors, private spaces, and being able to provide a really deep kind of love to people that's acceptance in every way, shape, or form. Because Venus Virgo can get very overwhelmed with perfecting the way to love. And I think there's a level of practicality and providing people services, providing people what it is that they need, and knowing how to be attuned to that very specific desire on a physical level that helps them understand the depth in which they can love a lot of different people. Because yes, you can provide different services to different people, but you're so attuned to how you're interacting with someone, especially because you are a Venus ruled chart, Libra rising with Venus and Virgo in the 12th. It's like, how do I connect to that person in such a perfect way that fits for them? And there's a sense of like over analysis of yourself with this one, and over analyzing the perfect person you can be, or the perfect way in which you can provide value to someone, but also especially on the partnership side of stuff, who you work with, there's a certain level of like perfecting or trying to critique that person a little bit too much. So it's a really strong placement here in the 12th because it is your chart ruler. And what's interesting with Venus in the 12th, like I said earlier about the whole jail quality of it, this particular person, in her very first really prominent relationship, it actually started with that person actually being in jail, which is very Venus in the 12th, and it's your chart ruler. And then having to be identified with that and understand that, and loving someone who is an addict or is lost or is struggling, I think is very Venus in the 12th. In Virgo, it's like providing practical services to those people. There's so much healing you can give. practically. So much facilitation you can give as a Venus Virgo in the 12th in so many different ways. It's so much about providing service and healing that Venus does well in Virgo. Even though it's in, you know, fall, it can do quite well because it knows it wants to give so much love and compassion, and it finds the perfect way to do that. And I think, yeah, there is obviously issues with that with Venus Virgo, because love is not perfect. Love is ever expanding, it's ever accepting, but there's ways to accept people exactly how they're coming that I think Venus in Virgo really learns how to do in a way that is similar to Venus in both Libra and in Pisces and in Taurus. It kind of has an ability to kind of connect to that I think is really beautiful. And then Venus in the sun ruled signs, Venus in Leo, or Venus and the Venus and moon ruled sign of Cancer. This is going to be one of those that Venus in a luminary becomes really, really bright and able to illuminate a lot of different things. So this is the one where you'll see a lot more aha moments in relationship, a lot more awareness of how these relationships and these money things and all those things are affecting you. There's a lot when the sun is in a Venus ruled, when the Venus is in a sun ruled sign. A lot of the values become illuminated. They become very evident. They want to be really brought up. There's definitely some interesting childhood stuff here. Venus in the sun sign in the 12th. There's some hidden childhood relational things or things that are really valuable from your childhood. Some really hidden talents there. A lot of stuff here with Venus and Leo in the 12th. Very much hidden talents, hidden value that you can provide, hidden parts of yourself that you're not aware of that can really heal a lot of different people from just shining and being brave and being allowed to be yourself. Leo in the 12th is a very critical of itself, obviously, not wanting to show up, but Venus there shows that there's something beautiful beyond you that you're just able to emanate and bring out to people and just show people what love really is by loving yourself enough to show yourself. Same with Venus in Cancer, but Venus in Cancer is a little bit more sensitive because it's obviously the moon. It's more private. This one has a lot more family related karma to it. Cancer in the 12th just has a lot of that. They just have a lot of lessons around family karma, family lessons, family unseen stuff, private stuff, going into people's other people's family karma, ancestral things. This is great for once again healing, intuitives, mediumship, stuff like that. But Venus in Cancer has a very sensitive quality to it of family karma, very deep family relationship with the mother, healing the mother relationship, healing your maternal ability, feeling like parenting yourself in some way. You're gonna get a lot of relationships that you're gonna need to parent them in a lot of ways, and you need to learn how to navigate that. Working in foreign lands or foreign affairs, or completely with refugees as well could be a part of this, or working with people that are displaced or looking for asylum could be a part of that, or even being that person at some point or the other, or housing those people. Helping homeless people, helping people like that. Venus in Cancer in the 12th can just be connected to the family of the collective in some way, and that's a lot of people that are struggling, that are unseen, hospitals, jails, things like that. Going into those spaces and beautifying them, there's a lot there. Venus and Leo also really niche one, but Venus and Leo could be those people that go into jails to do haircuts. There could be an aspect there. Venus and Cancer in the 12th can go into jails to do therapy. Or to beautify them, or do some resource management. Social workers could be really prominent for Cancer 12th house in general because of that reasoning. And then Venus in Jupiter ruled signs, so Venus in Sag or Pisces. Obviously, this is where Venus does quite a lot in both these signs. There's a lot of meaning, purpose behind this stuff in the 12th. There's a lot of biases with the 12th house when we put Jupiter or Mercury in that place, because there's a lot of mental or philosophical biases or cultural biases that are needing to be understood and worked through, especially with Venus in Sag or Venus in Pisces. Because Venus in Sag in the 12th, I think, has a lot of cultural, spiritual, philosophical biases or things that it doesn't want to understand or go towards. Some really interesting religious stuff, really meaningful stuff. Any 12th house planet is going to kind of indicate where a lot of that value is at that's hidden from you, meaning that in Jupiter in the 12th, or Venus in a Jupiter ruled sign in the 12th, there's a lot of spiritual meaning, purpose, teaching ability that you have that's hidden from you. And it can be a lot of your value. Venus in the 12th in Sag can be very valuable in a culturally larger way, or in a legal way as well. There can be some interesting legal battles with Sag in the 12th, and Venus there can win those things out. There can be some sense of advocating for women that are in legal battles within your culture. There's a lot of stuff there. There's some legal advocacy with Venus in the 12th in Sag, especially because more than likely your 10th house is Libra, ruled by that, which is in the 12th. So there's some foreign affairs related things with this. Or obviously like hospitals and things like that as well. Yeah, there's some interesting stuff there with Venus ruling the 10th and in the 12th. Interesting one there. Yeah, I'm not going to go too deep into these. This is what I would do in like an actual reading in a lot more depth, but I'm not doing that because this has already been like such a long video. But anywho, the last, and then Venus and Pisces, obviously this is your entire video. So there's a lot of, there's a lot of really interesting relational stuff here, overlayered. Pretty much this whole video is for you. Obviously, I don't want to go and rehash this all out, but obviously look to your Jupiter placement to help you understand more of that meaning, like I said, the Venus-Pisces portion. But I think for you, it's all about having a lot of really strong boundaries of specifically your own meaning, purpose that you prescribe to it. Look at the Venus-Sag story, right? There's a sense of purpose and meaning that you prescribe to things. You need to figure out what that is, and let that not be so wrapped up in everything else and everyone else's belief and what you believe is morally correct, and what everyone believes is the right way to do things. You're gonna get lost in so many different things, and that's okay. That's fine. But there's a lot of and I would definitely say go date a foreigner if you have this placement. Go foreign, go live foreign, go get married in a foreign country, go do something in a foreign country in the 12th house with Venus and Pisces in the 12th. There's a lot of like foreign stuff in that way. Yeah, I want to go deeper into these, but if you want to get a reading, reach out to me. Stuff like that's going to help you. But I love this series. It's been so fun. And obviously I could talk about Venus in a singular sign in a singular house for a long time. And this is kind of my way of doing that in very small portions. But I hope it helps you guys that have it. And obviously you want to look at the entirety of the chart in that way. And then finally, before I know you Venus, Saturn people are waiting, but Venus and Saturn will signs Capricorn or Aquarius in the 12th. Venus and Capricorn in the 12th. This is once again, this be more of the jail stuff. Exorcists are really strong with Capricorn in the 12th. And any planet in the 12th in Capricorn, I think it really indicates like helping unseen forces kind of know their boundaries, know their laws, know their limits. Working in government and like hidden government stuff behind the scenes with structuring people's businesses, hidden consultancy in some way. There's a lot with this one that I think can have a long-standing kind of value it's bringing. There's a sense of foreign affairs here. Definitely working for foreign affairs. There's a sense of that, or qualities of working for stuff that we can't see. Obviously, look to your Saturn sign for a better idea of what this is in that way, and look to the aspects as well. What else is in the 12th? Yeah, there can definitely be some jail-related things with this one a little bit more than anything, because Venus and Capricorn can definitely delay or put rigid or boundaries or walls between you and the ones that you love, whether through like cultural walls, whether it's through like immigration purposes or struggles or difficulties or legal things or jails or things like that, isolating things. There could be a sense of very interesting spiritual relationships as well, or like relationships with spirit. Venus in the 12th kind of just has that in general, like interesting relationships with spirit and spirit guides, and developing that kind of understanding. There's some interesting things in there that I would really urge you to kind of work towards understanding, diving deeper into. Yeah, it's an interesting one. And then Venus and Aquarius, and I forget about you guys. You guys are always last, so I appreciate you guys for your patience. But Venus in the 12th in Aquarius, there's a lot of like, this is where I would see the advocating for homeless people a lot more strongly than Venus just in Pisces in the 12th. But there's a sense of being identified with that as well, helping community, helping build foreign community, foreign aid, foreign advocacy. Definitely like foreign's, this is very much like the AA group type of energy here, very much that. Helping people that have been through similar things like you. Venus and Aquarius has a lot of that kind of quality to it. Providing value to a society that you feel identified with in some way, shape, or form, but in a way that can help advance society. Yeah, Venus and Aquarius in the 12th has like it's an interesting one. There's a lot of, and obviously, like I said, you have to look at the entirety of the chart. There's so many different ways to this. Look to your Saturn sign, look to your Venus ruled houses. So for this one, this would actually be a 8th house Venus ruled house with Venus and Libra in the 8th, connected to the 12th in Aquarius, which that can be some really intense, traumatic, relational boundary stuff. Yeah, then the 3rd, there's some words with that. I don't know. I'm not going to go too deep into it because I don't need to. If you want that, you know where to find me. But yeah, I hope this helped you guys. Venus in the 12th, and I'm just going to get one more little tidbit for Venus and Aquarius in the 12th. I think there's some interesting sibling relationships, interesting sibling overwhelm with that, or like relational mental overwhelm too with Venus in the 12th in Aquarius. Finding your community is really important for that, both because Venus is in Aquarius and then Venus also rules your 3rd. So there's a sense of really finding your voice, finding your community, finding your voice within a community, and not letting it be succumb to the, you know, the voice of the collective. Go watch the Venus Aquarius video. That's going to help you more than anything else. Yeah. Anywho, now I'm done with that. So this is the last Venus video. I only have one more video. I only have one more video in this whole series, and it's been so crazy and wild and such a long ride, and I'm so grateful to be even able to do all of this. I love what I do. I love this, and I really hope this was able to help any and all of you that watch this at any point in time, because Venus loves that. Venus loves to just give love. It loves what it loves, right? And I love doing this, and this has been such a bittersweet kind of week for me, as I wanted this journey and this project to be such a long-standing project, and it has been, and I think it's going to be here forever. So you can watch this video whenever you want, and that's true for any of the videos I do privately as well for clients, FYI. And then, of course, obviously you have the playlist to kind of bop around with and kind of understand more about your own chart. If you like how I talk, obviously there's stuff with booking me down there, as well as anything else on my socials are all down there too. If you like this, please like it, comment, share, subscribe. All those things are going to help me. I love you, Venus, guys. I love the Venus and Pisces people, Venus 12th housers. You guys are so unique in your own ways, and I really appreciate everything that you guys do for everybody, and I love being able to help, and I hope this helped the collective, as my 11th house self always does. Yeah, and I love talking about this stuff. I really do. It fills me up with so much joy, meaning, and purpose, and I think there's so much within astrology that I really hope this helps someone, even not just in this video, but in the entire series I've done. So yeah, I appreciate you guys. I hope this video helped you guys, and I will see you guys in the next and final video of this very long 84 video series of Saturn in Scorpio, Saturn in Pisces, and Saturn in the 12th, and my final Pisces installment. So yeah, I love you guys. I appreciate you, and I will talk to you guys soon.